What's up, everybody? Tim Anderson here, aka Renfell, and welcome back to the next Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition video as promised. Today we're diving into what class I should play in Baldur's Gate. There are a few that I think lean themselves towards a great first playthrough if you've never played the game before. But there's some other ones that you might want to play if you have been at the game a few times or you want a little bit more of a challenge. So we're going to be diving into that today. Now, again, as always, I need to remind those of you who might never have played this game before that this is not 5th edition rules. This goes back to the 2nd edition of the game, which was many, many, many years ago when I was growing up. So if you're not familiar with the 2nd edition, don't worry. I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know on how to create the class that you want in this game. So without further ado, we've already chosen a male elf just for the purposes of the race. We're going to back out of that, though, because we need to actually have a human for the next part, because I need to be able to do any class, and others have some restrictions. So without further ado, here are the basic classes: Fighter, Ranger, Paladin, Cleric, Druid, Mage, Thief, Bard, Sorcerer, Monk, and Shaman. If you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons at all, doesn't matter which edition, you're going to be familiar with at least some of these in some iteration, even though, yes, they are different in 5th edition, 4th edition, 3rd edition, 3.5. There's always slight variations. So the Fighter is a basic champion, swordsman, soldier, brawler. Lives and dies by his knowledge of weapons and tactics. Class features: they can wear helmets, they can wear armor and use any weapon, they can achieve Grand Mastery, 5 slots with any weapon class, may achieve specializations in any fighting styles, and allocate 3 slots and 2 weapon style, which no one else can do. They have a 1d10 for hit die, and their prime requisite for dual classing is strength. Now, as with all of the classes here, once we get into the actual fighter, there are sub-kits or class kits. The Berserker is an example of a class kit, as is the Wizard Slayer, the Kinsai, or the Barbarian. You can just be a straight-up fighter if you want, but you can break it down from there. And as we go through here, every single one of these is going to have the same. So the Ranger also has subclasses: Archer, Stalker, Beastmaster. The Paladin can be a Cavalier, Inquisitor, Undead Hunter, or Blackguard. The Cleric can be a priest of Talos, Helm, Lathander, Tyr, or Tempest. The Druid can be a Totemic Druid, Shapeshifter, or Avenger. The Mage can be from any of these schools of magic, or they can be a Generalist Mage. I always choose Generalist for a variety of reasons. But there's Abjurer, Conjurer, Diviner, Enchanter, Illusionist, Invoker, Necromancer, Transmuter, or Wild Mage. I've never liked Wild Mages, but some people do. Thieves, of course, can be broken down into Assassins, Bounty Hunters, Swashbucklers, or Shadow Dancers. Bards can be broken down into Blades, Jesters, and Scalds. Sorcerers are straight up sorcerers or dragon disciples. Then we have the Monk, who could be either a Dark Moon or a Sun Soul Monk. And of course the Shaman, who is just a shaman. So, which should you play if you're on your first playthrough of Baldur's Gate? And why are these my choices for like the first class that you should play, or the best classes? I am always partial to rogues, because of the fact that in Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 in particular, you're going to be coming up against a ton of traps. And you're going to need to be able to disarm those traps. There's also going to be doors and chests where you're going to be able to find special gear and potions and things that will help you along your way. I'm a big fan of creating a thief character for your first run-through. I like the Thief right out of the gate, because I think it's going to give you the most options in terms of being able to get around all the traps and things you'll find in dungeons and everything else. However, the Thief does require a little bit of hands-on manipulation, because backstab in this game, because we're dealing with an older version of Dungeons and Dragons, is based on literally backstabbing. There's no stealth attack, so you have to be behind the target to do backstab damage, and you don't get that bonus with ranged. It only is with your stabbing weapons. So if you want to get the most out of the damage of a rogue, you're going to want to be doing a lot of micromanagement for positioning on the battlefield. Otherwise, you can just use a ranged character and let them act as sort of a weaker ranger who can do some trap finding and so on and so forth. That's always going to be my first option. However, if you want the easiest way to play this game, I would suggest either choosing a fighter or a paladin. Either one of those builds is going to give you the survivability to go up against the toughest of foes throughout Baldur's Gate 1, and it will give you someone who can be at the forefront of the party with the best armor class, the shields, everything they need, the most hit points to be the tank of the group. And everyone else in your party can be the secondary characters who are supporting that tank. A fighter or a paladin, either one are great options. But depending on whether or not you want raw hit points and armor class, or if you want sort of like the hybrid, I can heal myself a little bit, do some buffing type of the paladin. Those are two of the easier options to play the game through. And then if you want something that I think is more of a complex way to play the game, you can go with, say, a cleric or a druid and do a little bit of damage with some healing and buffs, or you can choose to be straight up DPS with a mage or a sorcerer. I really love the mage in Baldur's Gate 1, 2, and Icewind Dale 1 and 2, because with a combination of like web and ice storm, fireball, death cloud, all these different things you can do to just wipe out AoE groups of mobs, it's a ton of fun. Bards are more of a, utility class. Shaman can be kind of like a druid or cleric as well. I've never really played a shaman, so I don't have a lot of opinion on those, and a monk is just a straight up DPS class. So for me, the thief is always going to be where I go first. And they show you all the bonuses here, the class features, etc. How to, you can distribute points per level to open locks, pickpockets. So that's the other thing too, is like when you pick a thief as an example, and I'm just showing you one of the many options. You have a kit, but let's just say we go with a regular old thief kit. Go through the alignment. This doesn't really matter that much. I want to show you something. Get to abilities. Doesn't matter about that. Skills. This is where on the right hand side you'll see like you get to choose where you put your points in terms of pickpockets, open locks, find traps, move silently, and stuff. And that can help you through determining, am I just straight only picking pockets, or am I worried about opening locks and finding traps, or am I worried about move silently, hide in shadows, detecting illusions, setting traps. There's lots of different ways to customize your thief, but you do have a limited amount of points to spend, so you have to kind of pay attention to that. Maybe we'll do another episode just about the thief character at some point. But going back to class options, as you can see, there are a ton of permutations here depending on what you want to do. Once you've picked a class, it's pretty much go from here. You pick your alignment, which doesn't have a lot to do with anything other than role play. The abilities, obviously, with this being the old school way of doing things, you don't get to pick points or anything else. So when you're creating the class that you want, it's very important to understand that, in my opinion, you can either choose to play this game with whatever base stats they give you and have a character that is whatever, you get a total roll here of accumulated points, and you can take away from things on the right hand side and give you some more points back, but you can only take things down to a certain level. So for this case, we can take everything down to 3, but we can't go beyond that, right? So 3 is the minimum, and the highest you can go, well, not 3 is the minimum, sorry, it depends on your some of the things you've chosen, race, class stuff. So in this case, 9 is the lowest I can go for strength, but everything else I can take down to 3. But you'll notice the total roll here is 80, and you can actually get up to around 90. I think you can, I can't remember if you can get above 90 or not. So one of the things many people will do is they'll spend an hour or two here when they've chosen their class. So 84 is pretty good. What I like to do is drop everything to 10, and then look at what is my character. And in this case, I chose a human fighter, right? So I would want to make sure that my strength is all the way up. I would want to make sure my constitution is all the way up, and then try to get my dex as high as I can. Now, that means I've got max stats here, 18, 18, 18. So I would store that and say that's a pretty good build, because I'm average in these 3, but maxed here. And it's going to change on each character what your primary 3 or 4 stats are. But you'll basically want to sit here and you're going to want to re-roll and see if you can't get better than 84 in your total roll. And if you can, you're going to do that, and then you're going to say store that one. But if you can't find something that you like, you can just hit recall, and it'll bring back that last build that we saved. But if you leave this screen, it gets rid of that, so it's important to make sure you stay here until you get the stats that you want. So once you've gotten the stats that you want, you can click done, and you can move on and finish the actual class selection. But this part of the character creation is vitally important to your chosen class. because unlike 5th edition, where you're getting lots of bonuses from different places, your stats are determined by your rolling here and then reassigning those points as you want. So in terms of making your class the best version of whatever it is that you've chosen for that class to be, you're going to want to spend some time on this character sheet in the abilities section. Once you're done with that, you can pick your skills and go from there into creating your actual character with the appearance and name. So hopefully this has been an informative journey for you into how to create a character for Baldur's Gate in terms of the best race, which we did in the previous episode, and in this episode talking about what class you should perhaps play through the game on your first playthrough, or if you're returning. Those are some of my favorites. Other people might have different versions, but those are mine. If you liked everything here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon, and if you can, please support the channel like all these amazing people do, because it keeps me doing this full time. You can do memberships here on YouTube. There's 3 different tiers, also over on our Patreon page. Or if you just want to do something quick and easy, you can do a donation in the form of a super chat or super sticker on live streams and premieres, or a super thanks after the fact. Pick your own amount. Pick one of the pre-programmed amounts. They're all great. Discord channel's down below. I'll see everybody in the next episode. Till then, everybody, safe gaming.